Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Hangin with JFK. My name is Colin and Behind me is my buddy John F. Kennedy, and I missed y'all, so I thought I would do another one of these funny, quirky, cool little episodes. I hope you enjoyed the first episode. I think it was last week. Like I said, I'm not really keeping track. I'm just kind of doing this when it feels good for me, feels right to do, and I feel like today is one of those days to do that because I'm a little bit motivated after. So I do my workouts in the morning. Now I do my workouts in the morning with my wife, but even before my wife started staying home because of COVID, I was doing my workouts in the morning and then I go for a walk. And my walks are really a great time because it's a time where I can listen to podcasts and I can learn and I can be outside, all things that I love to do. And I think it was last night, maybe it was even this morning, somehow I stumbled upon Pete Carroll on LinkedIn. I follow him on LinkedIn, I follow him on Twitter, one of my favorite coaches, and he is putting out a new podcast. It's called, hold on, let me figure it out here. It's called Flying Coach, and it's a podcast that he's doing with another one of my favorite coaches, Steve Kerr. I saw this post. I was like, how have I haven't heard anything about this. They have two episodes out already, and I was like, I definitely need to listen to this. So downloaded it this morning, listened to the first episode on my walk, and it was just as amazing as I thought it was going to be. Those two guys together really connected. They weren't physically together, obviously, but they connected, and it was such an amazing conversation. And they really talked about culture, which is something that is so important to me, is one of the biggest topics of conversation that I have with my business. It's the main topic of my book that's going to be coming out, and it was just by luck, by chance, I guess, that they decided to talk about culture in the first episode. And I think the reason it came up is because Pete Carroll had asked Steve Kerr the first time they met, what does it mean to him to be a coach? And Steve Kerr says something along the lines of, what do you mean? Like, what's my strategy and everything? And Carroll goes, no. Like, why are you coaching? Why do you like to coach? Why do you love to coach? And Kerr jokes on the podcast that immediately he started thinking, wow, I just spent the last 2 years trying to figure out my basketball strategy. And here's Pete Carroll, national champion, Super Bowl champion coach, telling me that I need to be thinking about other things with culture. And it's literally the same conversation that I have with coaches all the time. And it was so amazing to hear them talk about it because not only did they bring up the topic, but they really dove into it. And Carol specifically talked about the different aspects, whether it's building trust, building a rapport and a relationship with your players. He talks about how it's almost like he's a dad to all his players, and it didn't happen right away. And for people who don't know, and I won't go through the whole story because it could probably take a while, but Carroll was not what you would consider a successful coach in his first few stints. I mean, I think he said something that he and his family moved 17 times before he got the USC head coaching job in the early 2000s. 17 times, and I don't even know how many years that was, but 17 times moving is pretty crazy a number to think about regardless. So he's learning and everything, and he gets a couple head coaching jobs in the NFL. He's with the Patriots and with the Jets, and he just doesn't get it, and he's in what he calls the semi-retirement. And when he comes out of that and he gets the job at USC, it clicks. And Kurt talked about how one of the things that really drew him to Carroll at USC and then later with the Seahawks is the joy that his teams had. And I mean, if you watch, I was just happened to be watching Monday night, I think it was. I was watching clips of Reggie Bush and watching some of those games from USC and the excitement and the energy that those teams had. It was incredible. And there's a reason why they were seconds away and one of the greatest performances of all time by Vince Young away from winning 3 championships in a row. And I mean, it's carried over into the NFL. Carroll's teams are consistently not only winning, but I mean, they got people like Russell Wilson. Yeah, I mean, these are people that you look up to. They're leaders, and there's a reason that these people fit into the type of culture that Carroll has built. And you flip that over to Steve Kerr and you see what the Warriors had done up until this year when they went through some injuries and lost one of their best players to free agency. And it's the same thing. It's just joy. It was so much fun to watch the Warriors. And this is coming from a Lakers fan where the Warriors are, they were never a huge rival, but since they started winning all the time, became a huge rival in the state of California and in the NBA. So it was just really cool for them to talk about how culture is so much more than winning and losing. And you can see it if you watch the Seahawks, if you watch the Warriors, if you watch old clips at USC, you can see that joy inside. I'm sure there was a lot of trust. There was a lot of accountability. There was a lot of family type moments. It's kind of hard to replicate an exact family atmosphere, but I bet you it felt pretty close. And I just would love for more coaches to be open to that and to focus so much less on the X's and O's. But I know it's a difficult thing to achieve, and if Pete Carroll had difficulty getting to that point, then the coaches who aren't as good and will never be as good as Pete Carroll are inevitably they're going to struggle with that as well. But I highly, highly recommend it. Even if you're not a coach, if you just want to learn and you want to be blown away by these people who have amazing knowledge on how to treat people well and how to build cultures, these are things that can translate into the corporate world as well. Highly, highly recommend you listen to this podcast. It's unfortunately only going to be a limited time podcast. These coaches are super busy and they have a little bit of extra time right now with the whole COVID pandemic, but it's a really great podcast, and they're also doing it for a really great cause. Any proceeds that they raise from the podcast, they're donating to the COVID-19 relief efforts. So definitely check it out. I can link it in the show notes if you want here on YouTube, and I definitely recommend it. But that was how I started my day. Just really got me pumped up and got me thinking about myself and the way that I approach culture and just my work in general. And it's also got me thinking again. I mentioned how my book, Culture of Excellence, it's moving along. I have a sneak peek planned in the relative near future here. I just finished up yesterday or the day before with the final version of my book cover. Went through quite a lot of changes to get to that point, but it's super sweet looking, and I think people are really going to like the way that it looks. So I'm excited to share that, and I'm excited to continue to move through that process of publishing. I just finished up my first round of proofreading, which is before it goes into layout and interior design, and then there's a post proofread because apparently a lot of things get messed up in between those two stages. So there's still a couple steps to go, but every time I read the book, and obviously I'm a little biased towards the Yankees as a fan, but the stories themselves, they're so powerful. And when I think of the stories and then I think about that podcast that I talked about today with Pete Carroll and with Steve Kerr, it's got me even more excited because I know that those type of stories are exactly what they talked about on the podcast today. And they can unlock the same type of feelings and the same type of learning and the same type of potential. Anything that you want to gather from reading my book is going to come because these stories are about people. They play baseball, obviously, they coach baseball, and they are front office executives and owners in baseball, but they're people. And the stories about how the Yankees have built this culture that everybody wants to be a part of, it wasn't always like that. And we talk about that in the book. They had trouble bringing people to New York. It's kind of crazy to think about today, but they had trouble bringing people to New York back in the early 90s. It was a toxic culture from the 80s, and that carried over, and they had people turn them down. They had people who didn't even want to have conversations with them. That's a really difficult thing for people to do these days, unless it has something to do with just comfortability and wanting to be in the same place. And maybe there's some other factors, family and personal related. But if you want to not only win, which the Yankees can provide you on a yearly basis, but you want to be part of a great culture, an environment where you feel welcomed, you feel inclusive, you feel that you are having that fun and that joy, it's the Yankees are it. Like for Major League Baseball, they are the Warriors of the basketball world. They are the Seahawks of the football world. They are the USC back in the early to mid 2000s of college football. They are Clemson today of college football. That's what the Yankees are. And we can certainly learn a lot from them. I've learned a lot from them writing this book, things that I never knew in aspects and elements that I'm now able to use when I work with people. So super excited that the book just continues to move along, and I think that soon there'll be a little bit more. There will definitely be more sneak peeks and different things for people to see and to read if they want to. But I am I am so excited that it's hard. I kind of have to temper it because there's still a lot of steps ahead before the book actually gets published. So I'm getting closer to that finish line, not quite there yet, and it's exciting, but I need to keep it under control because gotta get through a couple more things to make sure this is the best that it can be for y'all. I think the last thing I want to talk about, I'm just excited for today, is I'm having a date night with my wife. By the time she sees this, the date will already be over, so I don't really mind talking about it. And we are going to do a couple things tonight. Every night after dinner, I almost said after work, but after dinner, we go for a walk as long as the weather's nice out. It's a nice way to speed up the digestion, make it flow a little bit easier, and it's just also a nice way we kind of unwind and talk to each other because we're both so hungry by the time dinner comes that sometimes we're just eating our food and not really saying anything to each other. So it's a really great thing that we do together that we've always done. So we'll go for that walk, but then I'm going to give her a massage. I only was able to give her one pregnancy massage from a professional before this whole COVID pandemic broke out, and she deserves them for the way that she has handled the pregnancy and for carrying another child for close to 7 months now. And I know I'm not a professional, but I'll at least be able to, help make her feel better and a little bit more comfortable because I can already tell that it's, especially as Stella starts to throw a party, as my wife likes to put it, Stella's growing and she's getting more excited, and that's making Christine a little bit more uncomfortable throughout the day because it's hard when there's a kid in your stomach. I mean, obviously I can't imagine it, but it's got to be difficult. So I'm gonna be able to do that massage for her, and then there's a really cool. And if anybody watches this before tonight around 7 o'clock, there's a really cool COVID party, I guess they're calling it. Bruce Springsteen, Saquon Barkley, a few other celebrities are going to be a part of it. I'm imagining they're going to raise money for the relief efforts and do some different things. I don't know what Saquon Barkley necessarily is going to do, except maybe talk a little bit, but I imagine Springsteen will play some songs and different things like that. So we're going to watch that. It starts at 7, and then around 8 o'clock or so, I'm going to start a fire outside. We have a nice little fire pit, a nice area in our backyard. And today's a pretty nice day in Charlotte, and hopefully the wind won't be a factor tonight. We can do that fire because we've had to cancel a couple times due to the high winds rather recently. So I think it'll be a fun day night. And just in general, really like to do those things because it's fun for me and it's fun for Christine and it's fun for both of us. So definitely encourage you all, if you have significant others, there are still ways to have date night and to do fun things. You just got to maybe be a little bit more creative during this time period where we can't really go anywhere outside of our houses. So definitely encourage you to do that, and I appreciate again all the support and everybody watching this, listening to the podcast, just everything that you do to support me. And I hope you had some fun today hanging out with me and JFK. Looks like he's having a ball back there. I know he's pretty quiet and doesn't really say much, but he is listening and he does care for you as much as I do. So thank you so much for listening to Hanging with JFK today. Take it easy out there, and until next time, again, take it easy.